Today I'm going to rebuild the Iowa Hawkeyes, and I'm not stopping until we win a national championship, but that means I have to fix one of the worst offenses in college football, and last season they averaged less than 18 points a game, which put them as the 123rd offense in the country. There are a couple of bright spots though, like freshman wide receiver Caleb Brown, but this quarterback room is honestly terrible, and to make recruiting even harder, I can only go after players interested in coming here, so that means the drop-off after these top group of guys is going to be pretty rough. Also, on top of playing until I win it all with Iowa, I need to complete these 5 challenges in that same time span, and if I fail to do so, I'll be giving away a jersey to a random commenter like always. On this file, we'll be starting right after they won their first few games, and this is being recorded before the Penn State one, but I'm assuming they're going to lose it, and they do. Right now, the Big Ten looks like this, but during the offseason, I'll be adding in all the conference realignment, which means these 4 schools are going to join the conference, and there will also be a 12-team playoff. Going into week 5, there's quite a few prospects that I'm confident will end up committing, but we are in very tight battles for all 4 of the guys that I actually want, and I would do anything to get athlete Joe Ward. This 4-star could be our quarterback of the future, but I have a backup plan in case we don't get him, and that is Larry Higgins. I'd also obviously love to land Brandon Brown, but we're losing points on him weekly, and that stinks because he would make our defense even better. Our only hope of getting him is scheduling him for a visit against Northwestern, and on the road at Indiana, I'm hoping that we're able to pull off the win, but we lose by 5. We literally almost had more first downs than points scored, and I'm just going to go ahead and sim to our visit week against the Wildcats. We picked up a win against Illinois, and we also beat Minnesota, so there's a small chance that we could win our division this year and make the Big Ten championship, but we have to finish the year strong to make that happen, and welcome to Kinnick Stadium. Iowa actually has a really cool tradition here where at the end of the first quarter, all 70,000 fans in the stands will turn to the Children's Hospital and wave to the patients in there. As much as I joke about it, it's actually really neat, and I need to make sure I can impress those kids, so I'd say it's a good thing our defense is on the field, but we've already given up a touchdown, and there we go. That's more of what I'm expecting out of this Hawkeyes unit. And Cade McNamara, buddy, I'm gonna need you to get it going so we can get some of these recruits to commit to this school. Well, with a minute left in the third quarter, we still haven't scored, but I'm hoping we can scramble in here, and he is just so slow. That makes it 4th and goal, and I'm gonna go with the halfback toss, but it's not gonna work. With about 4 minutes left, it looks like the backup quarterback is in. We're gonna go to Caleb Brown. He's gonna make a guy miss, and he is gonna stiff arm his way into the end zone. Cade McNamara tearing his pectoral might be a blessing in disguise, because ever since Joe Labus has came in the game, we have not had a bad offensive drive, and we're gonna tie it back up at 14. I'm telling you, this Iowa defense is actually really good, and we are going to get the interception with TJ Hall. It looked like the crowd was shaking there. It kind of froze for a second, but from there, we are going to go on to get into field goal range on Northwestern, and I'm hoping that this thrilling last-second result gets some players to commit. It wasn't pretty, but at least Caleb Brown did well, and I can't believe it, but just based off of that one result, we were able to get 12 different prospects to commit to Iowa. The best one so far is probably 3-star Jeremy Thomas, and as an outside linebacker, we can use him in a lot of different ways. Going into this next week, we're actually playing for the top spot in our division, and since Wisconsin is sitting inside the top 10 right now, I need to spark some hope, and I'm going to do that by starting Jay Labus. He looked pretty solid versus Northwestern, but so far against this Wisconsin defense, he hasn't done much, and I'm glad that kick is good. It might have been the only points we scored in the first half, but because of how well our defense has played, we've been able to stay in this game, and we're going to take a lead. Also, yes, I am wearing an Iowa State shirt for this video, but it's the closest thing I have to an Iowa one, and that'll probably tick off some Hawkeyes fans. We did let Wisconsin score, so we need to go down the field and get a touchdown, but after seeing that effort from Joe Labus, I believe that we could really pull off this upset. I should have just taken the check down. And who is Reganey, and why is he in the game? This is definitely not a quarterback. He looks like a wide receiver, but we are going to complete the pass to Johnson, and he's going down at the 10. The only 2 starters we have are both injured, and thankfully Labus is back out there, but I'm going with the run to Johnson, and that's because I thought the wide receiver was still going to be out there at QB. Here on 2nd and goal, I am looking around the field. I don't see anything I like. We're going to break the sack, though. Please make this throw. That's a dot. We have somehow pulled off the upset over Wisconsin, and I have never had this good of a start to a rebuild before. The Big Ten West is super weak, but I see Ohio State on our schedule next, and we lose to Purdue. So even though things were going well, I'm just going to sim this one against the Buckeyes, and I knew that would be the result. Even though they aren't having a good year in this dynasty file, I knew Ohio State would probably beat us, dropping us to 2 in our division, and this rivalry game against Nebraska still means something, but not as much because our season's already over. We also just got locked out on Brandon Brown, and there's nothing I can do about it, so this is not how I pictured our season finishing, and Joe Labus ended up not being the answer because these are some terrible stats. Caleb Johnson was only able to get 500 rushing yards, and Caleb Brown was our best receiver as a freshman, but these stats are not the best, so I guess it should be no surprise that we only averaged 21 points a game, and that means in this first season we didn't knock off any of our goals. If you're curious about how the last 4-team playoff ever went, this is how it turned out, and USC might have won it all, but Caleb Williams didn't win the Heisman. As for our bowl game, I don't know where this was all season, but our offense was finally meshing, and this was quite the touchdown grab from Luke Lachey. I'm hoping that our tight end doesn't declare for the draft early, and I gotta say, 9-4 for the first year of a rebuild feels pretty good. I mean, it's gonna get a lot harder considering that most of our starters have now graduated, and we also lost our best cornerback Cooper DeJean to the draft early, but at least we got a new defensive coordinator, and all of these stat boosts are gonna be insane. We also got a couple transfers from Illinois to help our offense, and I made the mistake of over-recruiting, so I can only offer one of these two players a scholarship, and you know that I have to go with Joe Ward, who's probably gonna play quarterback for us. Even though most of these prospects aren't gonna look very good, there are a couple of great guys like James Clayton at the top of the class, and with that much depth, we finished with the 17th class in the country. All I can say is we're gonna need all the help we can get, because as I was scrolling through our defense, it is complete trash compared to last year, and no matter what these training results are, we can't be saved. It is nice to see that there are at least 6 90 overalls on this roster, but after that, the drop-off is pretty brutal, and we'll see how we do in the newly aligned Big Ten, but since I can only keep 16 teams in the conference, Indiana and Rutgers have to go, and I hate that the reigning national champions are now on our schedule every year. On the bright side, at least our non-conference schedule is pretty weak, and I'm actually not sure which of these guys I'm going to start at quarterback. However, once I saw that Joe Ward was faster and he had a better arm, it was a no-brainer decision, so going into this season, we're going to be riding on a true freshman. As for the recruits that are interested in us, compared to last year, we actually have 5 stars now, and there's 117 guys to choose from instead of 97, so it should be much easier to build a good board. When you look at this screen, it says that we don't have any needs, but that's just not true, and I had my sights set on Elgin Cabral, a 79 overall defensive end. With all these new Pac-12 teams, we were projected to finish 9th in the Big Ten, so we cannot lose to Troy in this first matchup, and we don't. For a debut performance, Joe Ward wasn't terrible, but I think we'll do a lot better if I adjust the offense to fit his style of play. Now against Iowa State, I'm hoping that we can go out and win the Cyhawk series, which we do, so things seem to be going pretty well as we're going to start the year 3-0 again. I also found a +10 gym in 3-star defensive tackle Todd Williams, and the only thing that could stop our momentum was losing to Oregon. They had already lost one game this season, and it was pouring down extremely hard, so I thought Joe Ward would be set up perfectly for success, but it has taken us until the end of the first half to get onto the board with this run. What I've learned about this team in this game is we are no longer a team that struggles on offense. We actually have one that can compete, but Joe Ward takes a lot of sacks, so we probably need to improve the offensive line, and he is going to miss this throw. Our defense also isn't as good as it has been in the past, so things are changing for Iowa football, and hopefully it's for the better, not the worse. Just like the previous year, we are in a lot of recruiting battles to land some prospects, but I feel like we should be able to beat our rivals Minnesota, so that's going to be the game that everybody's going to come for. We lose to Purdue again, and it's disheartening to start Big Ten Conference play 0-2, but I have to remember Joe Ward's just a freshman, and hopefully he can bounce back during visit week. Minnesota hasn't won a game yet this season, so they're thirsty for a win today, and they might have a lead with about 4 minutes remaining, but I'm going to thread the needle to Deontay Vines. I wasn't sure if that would work or not, but here on 3rd and 14, we need to lock up. We are going to get the sack, so Minnesota might be taking a 3-point lead, but just like last year, we have the ball and a chance to impress the visiting recruits, so we have to take care of business. If we don't win, a lot less of them will commit to Iowa, but Luke Lachey is streaking up the middle wide open, so I was hoping this result would be a lock, but Minnesota is moving the ball down the field. We just have to hold on the final play, and that's going to be intercepted, so that result makes us 4-2 this season, and this is awesome. I have never seen this cutscene in the game before. Joe Ward helped us take home the bronze pig, and all 7 of these prospects love that as they've decided they all want to be Hawkeyes. There's so many good players there, I can't single them all out, but James McDonald is going to make for an amazing man-to-man corner. Elgin Cabral is going to put the quarterback under a lot of pressure, and 6'5", 5-star athlete Rashad Cotton is going to be one of the best receivers to ever come through this program. I'm so pumped up about this program's future, but now we have to take on number 1 USC, who beats us by 5, and losing by that little to them is a win in my books. Since we play number 7 Penn State next and number 8 Washington's coming up, I think we know how the year's going to end, but to be completely honest, 7-5 with a win over Nebraska isn't bad at all. It's unfortunate that the Big Ten West has to be good all of a sudden, but in a few years it'll hopefully be Joe Ward that's dominating it, and on top of those passing stats, he also rushed for 400 yards. Receiving wise, Caleb Brown remained pretty stagnant, but we did enough to make another bowl game, and the offense is slowly improving as this year we averaged 26 points per game. Now obviously we didn't make the first 12-team playoff ever, which Florida won, but we still had an important game against BYU in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, and this offense was running the option really well. However, with a minute left, BYU's going to tie it up, so it is all on Joe Ward, and if they're going to leave the middle that open for him, he's just going to scramble for a lot. I'm very happy with how he did for most of his freshman season, and in back-to-back years, we had taken care of business during our bowl games. It'll be exciting to see how Joe Ward develops, and we're only losing 8 total seniors, so we should take a step forward next year, especially with this this recruiting class. I didn't think it would be this high, but it finished as the 5th best in the country. So even though I only signed prospects interested in Iowa, this one was not hard to knock off. The biggest shock of the offseason is I could move John Nestor to free safety and he'll become an 83 overall. But what made that so crazy is during training results, he went up another 7, so he was now a 90 overall sophomore. And Seth Anderson leapfrogged Caleb Brown for our best receiver on this roster. Joe Ward also worked very hard as he is now an 85 overall quarterback. But of the 10 teams in the top 12, 6 of them come from the Big Ten. So this season won't be easy, even though we're projected to be pretty solid. Recruiting wise, it looks like we're going to have 119 players to go after. And there's a good chance that I won't get many of these guys, but I'm still going to shoot for getting the best ones. Our opener's against Northern Iowa, so if we would have lost that would have been an issue. But I guarantee nobody's expecting us to win this one, as we are definitely very big underdogs. If we could pull off the upset at home though, that would be huge. And approaching halftime, it's actually all tied up at 14, but I'm going for the lead, and that is a must catch. When I saw our tight end in one-on-one coverage, I had to give it a shot, and I can't believe how well those first 2 quarters went. I know it's early in the season, but we are playing like a team that could make the 12-team playoffs, and we can still win this game. I'm going to go ahead and take the read that is intercepted, and I can't believe how stagnant the offense has gotten. Here in the second half, we have not been able to do much, but Ward is going to make a couple guys miss, and he's also going to find Brown for what looks like it's going to be a touchdown. Caleb Brown couldn't finish it off, but with the fullback dive, we should be able to. And now that we got that close, we'll go with the quarterback sneak. We just have to get a defensive stop on Ohio State and Mine Williams. Someone make a tackle. And with no more room for error, the pressure is really on. On 3rd and 7, I'm going to send the house, and we are not going to get the blitz in time. So the Buckeyes are going to beat us. And it's frustrating that we couldn't pull it off, but I have a lot more confidence as we go through the rest of the year. And last season, we played against Oregon, so I'm just going to sim it, which is going to go in our favor. Joe Ward just took down the number 2 team in the country, and I might as well schedule everybody to visit against USC. I might sound really optimistic, but I think we can win our division, and it's nice to be back in the top 25 again. Before we take on the Trojans, we have 2 very tough road games, and nothing is a gimme in Big Ten conference play, but we took care of business in both. There's a decent chance that we make the 12-team playoffs here in year number 3, but we need another big result like beating USC. They are ranked 14 spots higher than us, and with a couple minutes left in the half, they do have a lead, but all I'm going to do is scramble into the end zone with Joe Ward. That shifted momentum in our favor, and now we should be able to go up by a touchdown if that route would have gotten open. I have no idea why mid-route senior Seth Anderson just stopped running and let this get intercepted, but that could end up being the difference maker if we can't get a stop. Here on 3rd and 10, we are going to hold them though, so we're getting the ball back, and this is where Joe Ward could really show the country how good he actually is. He's going to make one defender miss, but if we want to efficiently move the ball down the field, we're going to need to pass instead of run. However, if I don't see anything open, I can still scramble with Joe Ward because he does have that ability. He is going to break a tackle, and that spin cycle was insane. Just get out of bounds. We're probably pretty lucky he didn't fumble there, and I don't know how he's able to pull some of this stuff off, but taking a sack there was not ideal. We are going to need to get a big gain, and that throw is so inaccurate. It's going straight to the Trojans defender, and I don't know how he missed his tight end this badly. He's still a young quarterback, but that's the second close one we're going to lose. So this team that feels like a playoff one cannot catch a break, and none of the 3 recruits we're in tight battles for were willing to commit. We play at number 7 Penn State next, but number 1 Washington's also on our schedule, so I'm going to go to that, and I just have to hope a result there gets us into the playoffs. Unfortunately though, they lost 2 straight during that time period, and now this game doesn't mean as much. I don't want to make any excuses because this performance is just abysmal from us as an offense in general, but we are going to lose, and I never imagined that this team would give up 49 points. After seeing that game, Jason Fletcher decided he wanted nothing to do with our program, and I can't jump into anything else this season, so I might as well just sim to the conference championship. Even if we get a result against Wisconsin, I don't think we're going to get into the playoffs, but since we did, I have to hope for the best against Nebraska, and we lose to them. I think the biggest issue we're facing is we're just not scoring enough points per game, which makes no sense because Joe Ward was 6th in the country for passing yards. We're getting in the right positions, but we're not finishing off drives, and Caleb Brown has been fully overtaken by Seth Anderson. Another year, another unranked bowl game, and I don't know what I can do to make this team's offense better. We've only put up 10 points against Kentucky in the Mayo Bowl, so my favorite team's about to beat us unless we can pull off this 4th and 11 and Caleb Brown gets open, but with no timeouts, there's still not much hope. I might as well just roll out, and I could have tried to make a throw, but you know what? Joe Ward has the speed to take off and get out of bounds, so now I'm wondering why he hasn't just done that all day. He's going to throw a dot here, and for the 3rd year in a row, we're going to probably get a bowl game win, except it's intercepted. Nothing better than taking a casual jog midway through your route, and Iowa's offense needs some serious help. Since Washington got super close to winning it all as the 11 seed, it makes me feel better knowing they were hot when we got blown out by them, but we have got to bounce back from that because over the last 3 seasons, we've been on a downwards trajectory. Our players are starting to notice ridiculous too, because even though Rashad Cotton had a decent freshman season, he's transferring to North Carolina, and we're also losing a lot of other key players besides John Nestor because he didn't declare for the draft. Nobody wants to transfer in either, and I know we're not close to winning a championship, but I've still only completed one of the 5 video challenges. At least in recruiting, we should get both of these 4 stars, but we didn't have enough points for Andrew Horner, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know if this class would be very good or not, but we got a ton of good prospects, and evidently they were ranked so high that it got us to the number 2 class in the country. I thought only recruiting players interested in Iowa was going to be a challenge, but it seems like the real challenge is putting a team on the field that can win games, and oh great, Joe Ward regressed during the offseason. Marco Lanes actually shot above him, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm making a quarterback switch. They're both juniors, so I might as well see what we have in Marco Lanes. And why does starting halfback Jason Patterson have 74 speed? After seeing that and all of these ranked schools on our schedule, I feel like we're just going to have another bad year. And with all of our top 10 teams, I don't know how the SEC is ranked higher. Well, it makes some sense when you look at the polls because they have 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. I guess things could be much worse, and I'm lucky to be in the Big Ten. But going into the Ohio State game, we have the number 1 offense. Maybe the quarterback switch made all of the difference. Marco Lanes here on 2nd and 10 is going to throw it over the middle, and it's caught by Bostic. Maybe this season we are going to have a little bit of luck on our side, and it is about time. Iowa fans deserve this. It's definitely far from Iowa's style of offense, but I'm loving this air raid attack, and if we can continue to score at this rate, the quarterback switch has worked. I know we had an uncharacteristic performance defensively against Washington last year too, but besides that, we're solid, and if we blow this lead, we are officially cursed at football. I don't know why he didn't make an animation to catch the ball there, but I'm just going to take the field goal, and it's short, so please do not tell me that we are going to blow this game. I have got to just use her everything, make some hits. I really wasn't sure if I was going to want to start Marco Lanes, but he has done everything I've asked him to, and this has to be the first time I was beating Ohio State in a while. Never mind, I forgot they did in 2017, but before that it was 2004, so it's still a huge accomplishment. If we lost to Iowa State now, that would be so upsetting. I don't think we have yet in this dynasty, and this year I'm playing the Oregon game. We were able to upset them during sim, but this time I want to make sure it happens again, because if we can keep this up, I would like to think that we'd be a lock for the playoffs. Going into the second half, you'll see that the offense has struggled, but that's because our starting halfback got injured and Caleb Brown is out with a sprained elbow. On 4th and 2, we really need to convert here, and we are not going to get it, so it's no surprise that we're trailing by 10 with a few minutes remaining in this game, but Roberts is going to shed a tackle, and once we get in here, we are only going to be behind by 3. The pressure is definitely on to get a stop here on 3rd and 3. I was using that route perfectly, and they still completed it. Fortunately, after run committing a couple times, we have them on a 3rd and 16, and we are about to see how clutch our new starting quarterback really is. On the first play of this drive, they're pressing us, and Marco Lanes already sees an open receiver. We are down to midfield. Jacob Bostic has had a good year so far, and who is blocking that guy? We cannot afford to take sacks in these situations. Lanes is not a quick quarterback, so we're just going to have to take the dump off to our tight end. And here on 3rd and 8, again, the offensive line failed. You can never escape the dysfunction of the Iowa offense. And here on 4th and 15, we are going to need a miracle. We might be able to get a lucky route bounce here, but they deflect it. And Marco Lanes wasn't the issue, so it seemed like losing our starting running back really hurt us. Since he's out for another 5 weeks, I'm worried about how this year's going to go now, but I have faith that we can take down 2-2 Minnesota, and we do by a ton. I feel like Marco Lanes had to set a school record with this game, but he couldn't beat out either of the Chucks for any of these. Going into week 7, there's still 5 of us that could come out of this division, and I can only jump into one more game, so I'm going to have to sim a couple. We beat USC, so I have my fingers crossed that we can take down Penn State, and we do. I feel crazy saying this, but right now we are averaging the most points in the country, but just when things were getting good, Marco Lanes got injured against Penn State. I mean, we're going to beat 0-7 FAU, but we now have to go back to our old quarterback, and I guess Joe Ward was ready because he had 6 total touchdowns. Recruiting wise, I haven't mentioned much because we've just been in battles for our top 5 guys, but we have landed a few really good commits already, and that includes 81 overall Jamal Smith. The athlete could be a quarterback, a wide receiver, or a halfback, so we'll have to see where he best fits into this team during the offseason, but as I'm continuing to sim these games, I'm noticing that our offense is not slowing down. It's honestly absurd that Ohio State is ranked above us right now, but we have 2 big games left on our schedule, and if we can beat Wisconsin this week, we're going to make the Big Ten championship. I cannot believe we still have the number 1 offense going into this game. But before we get even farther into the rebuild, a word from today's video sponsor, Prize Picks. If you somehow still don't know what Prize Picks is, you simply pick higher or lower on player projections, and this week I think the best wide receiver in college football will catch a touchdown versus Notre Dame, while Josh Allen easily gets 2 or more passing touchdowns. If you add more players, you can win up to 25 times your money, but I'm going to stick with these 2 and put in 25 to win 75. Last week it worked out for me, so hopefully this one does as well, and I can get you a deposit match up to $100 on Prize Picks. If you use use promo code BOARD when you sign up, they'll match it up to $100 and you'll help support me, but you have to reside in one of the 31 states they're available in. Now let's get back to the Iowa rebuild, and I have to make sure that all of these fans aren't left disappointed. I feel like Joe Ward is going to be able to rise to the occasion, but then again, he lost us like 5 or 6 games last year, so we're going to have to see how much he's improved during the offseason. With about 4.5 minutes here in the second quarter, that is not Joe Ward throwing this wide receiver screen, and what is Anthony Brown doing in the game? Apparently, we are down to our 3rd stringer, and if a concussion is what ruins the best season of Iowa football in like the last 5 or 10 years, I'm going to be so upset. Before we had all these injuries, I would confidently tell you that this one would beat the 2015 one, but now that we're starting a 3rd stringer, I don't know how I feel about it. Our best chance of winning is probably limiting possession, so our defense steps up, and this will be the final drive of the first half. We are going to have a streaking, wide open George in the end zone, and I'm glad that Anthony Brown was able to complete that pass, but ever since then, he has been struggling under pressure, and he cannot use his legs all the time, but he did for practically this entire drive where we're on a 4th and 2, and nobody is open. This is a disaster. I don't know what Wisconsin's going to go with on 3rd and 7, but we have to get a stop here, and we do. So boys, despite another struggling offensive performance, we have a little bit of hope, and I just got way too much time in the pocket. George is wide open. The Badgers only sent 1 rusher because they were so worried about Anthony Brown rushing and scrambling away. He needs to throw this one out, but for some reason, it was stuck to his hand like glue, and we have him deep, but it is going to be underthrown to Bostic. If we could even pick up a chunk of it here, I will take it, and that's what we're going to do, get out of bounds, and I wish we were in field goal range, but it says we're not, so we're going to have to thread the needle, and Caleb Brown holds on. Oh my gosh, Iowa's playoff hopes are on the line right here. Anthony Brown rolls around. He has somebody down the middle. George gets down, and this is a very ballsy play, but I think it's best if we go with the run, and that was a dumb decision. I thought it might catch them off guard, but we now have no room for error. Caleb Brown breaks the press, and the senior wide receiver is clutch. That amazing touchdown just set a school record, and the Wisconsin fans are shocked. I never would have imagined our 3rd string quarterback stepping up, and keep in mind, he was not prepared to play in that game. All we have to do to finish out the year strong is beat 0-8 Nebraska, and we thrashed them, so they didn't get a single conference win all season, and unfortunately, Michigan did steal this tackle from us, but we made it to the conference championship, so I don't care. We also have multiple players that are very close to winning defensive awards, which is one of our goals, so a ton is on the line going into this game, and Ohio State has packed this stadium. Marco Lanes is still out with a torn quad, and we probably won't have him for the playoffs, so we're going to have to stick with Joe Ward and see how far he can take us. I've been very impressed with him, the way he filled in, especially after we benched him. This throw is going to be a little bit short though, so we had to settle for 3, but we've already beaten Kyle McCord once, so doing it a second time shouldn't be very difficult to do. We've maintained about a 2-possession lead throughout the entire game, and here on 4th and 5, we are going to throw it on the run to Dennis George, so I don't know why Joe Ward didn't set his feet, but it doesn't really matter to me because we're getting the exact result that we wanted. That's going to be a game-ending interception, and you know what? Let's just rub it in and try to take this back to the house. We have beaten Ohio State twice this season with 2 different quarterbacks, and once Iowa gets an offense in real life, this is something that could actually happen. Joe Ward did a very good job for stepping in, and there is the Big Ten championship trophy going back with us. I am so excited to get into the playoffs with this team, and I can't believe we finished the season with the #1 offense in the country, but unfortunately, that wasn't enough for Caleb Brown to win the Blitnikoff, and that's really disappointing because he put up these numbers with 2 different QBs. Rushing-wise, like all 4 of these years, nothing really stood out, and then for quarterback play, Marco Lanes was way better, but Joe Ward still stepped up. We did get very close to having multiple players win defensive awards, but unfortunately, Kenny Merriweather didn't win the Lombardi, and Cohen Entringer didn't win the Thorpe. That means if we win it all this year, I wouldn't have completed all the video's challenges, but I don't care because I'm ready to go off in the playoffs. Our first game is against San Diego State, and you won't believe who is out there on the field right now. We have our starting quarterback back. It has been like 9 weeks since he last played, and I don't know how this is possible because a week ago it said he needed more recovery time. Either way, this makes a massive difference as we should perform even better now, and it's nice that the entire team is healthy again. On 3rd and 10, San Diego State's going to go with the halfback screen, and we should have stopped it there, but that tackle still marked him short, and on this play, I'm going to try to find Jacob Bostic in the end zone. He's going to go up with 1 hand, and that's going to cause a pick. I don't know why he didn't go up with 2 hands here, but if he would have pulled that down, it would have been insane, and I'd be more upset if I was worried we were going to lose this game, but I don't see it happening. San Diego State's held their own pretty well, but we have 13 first downs to their 5, and we're about to score another touchdown. I honestly thought that ball was about to get picked off, but I'm going to roll out with Marco Lanes here and dive to the pylon. By the 4th quarter, San Diego State still had 14, and I know I'm using Iowa, and I haven't run the ball much or used my tight ends, but the only reason that we're actually successful now is because I came in and switched up the entire offense. Marco Lanes just set a school passing touchdown record at 28, and that's extremely low for a school record even for the Hawkeyes. I'm glad that we're moving on on to the next round though, and talk about a game from Marco Lanes. Our quarterfinal opponent is 4-seeded Oklahoma, and halfback Dalen Smothers won the Heisman for them with over 20 touchdowns, so I knew that this one was going to be tough. This was our chance to prove we were a championship contender though, and our defense has been so good I wasn't even worried. We got the stop on their first drive, and then Marco Lanes led us all the way down the field to score on this wide receiver screen. From there, we'd go back and forth for a bit, and Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold were holding their own, but they just couldn't seem to finish off drives the same way we could. On 3rd and 1, they pressed our best wide receiver, Caleb Brown, so I thought he was going to toast the corner on him, but he kept up instead, and it was a bad decision to go for that instead of the safe route because the Sooners are about to score, but we like to take those risks, and here on 1st and goal, nothing is open, and that should have been a pick. Like I said, they can't finish in the red zone, but we need to have a much better second half. On 3rd and 18, after taking a sack that I really shouldn't have, the Sooners are going to get another one, and I can't believe that nobody even tried to stop number 10 here. It looks like this one is going to turn into a game of defense, and that's a good punt, but the real question will be, can we get a safety on the Sooners? And we are not going to. The worst part was Jackson Arnold ended that drive with a touchdown, and we were looking like an old Iowa team with no offense, but on this play, I was able to avoid the sack with Marco Lanes, and then he delivered a bullet over the middle, so that got us a little bit of life, but these Oklahoma cornerbacks are clamping up amazingly, and there's no way he picked that. He literally just stuck to one of our best wide receivers like glue, and this is reminding me a lot of the Oregon game, which doesn't make any sense. We've played so well most of the year. The Hawkeye mascot's even sad right now, and I'm right there with him. We've gotten them to another 3rd and 9. This time they are just going to take the flat, so we've been gifted another opportunity, but maybe we're just not on the same level as some of these SEC schools. That's another interception. We tried to go with the crosser instead of the flat just to get more yards there, and Oklahoma's trying to end the game as if they get this 2-point conversion, we're done. I thought this Iowa team was ready to make it this far, but maybe we need to run it back. I'm sure not many of these players are going to go on to the draft, and I seriously thought this group of guys was good enough to win it all. If we could get a lucky onside kick recovery, we'd still have a chance, but Anderson's going to hold on to the football, and I need them to make a mistake like going for a pass on 3rd down, which they're going to do, and we are going to get the sack. That kind of sucks because it stops the clock and they're going to get a field goal, and I don't understand why it took us this long for our offense to come alive, but that is going to do it. Oklahoma has knocked us out of the quarterfinal, and I knew that facing off against Jackson Arnold and the Heisman winner would be tough because they went on to win it all. We're going to be losing players like Caleb Brown, but that's a given. What I'm worried about is the other guys on this tab, and I don't see either of our quarterbacks declaring. And you know what? It stinks that we're going to lose 9 different starters and another senior, but I should be able to convince James Clayton to come back by guaranteeing a conference championship, and I just had to let John Nestor go onto the draft because he really wanted to. We had a really small recruiting class with only 13 players on the board, and they're really not the best, but somehow it was still able to finish inside the top 10, and it looks like we also got a new defensive and offensive coordinator. Based on need, Jamal Smith is going to play wide receiver for us, and unless some of these older wide receivers have a good offseason, we're going to have to start 3 different freshmen. These training results need to be good, and our top player is James Clayton and Marco Lanes. Now, they might not have the best targets to throw to, but I think that's why we're going to run the ball a lot more this year, and we fortunately lucked out with our conference schedule as I only see 3 ranked teams on it. I'm feeling really good about this year because as I scroll through these top teams, we are the highest overall one, and even in our division, besides Oregon and USC, we should be able to dominate the rest of these teams pretty easily. We're starting off against Ball State and Iowa State, so we should be able to take a couple of wins, and the Cyclones are honestly just terrible. As for this one against Oregon, we're both ranked inside the top 3, and right now our offense is averaging 54 points per game. There should be no reason we lose this, but if we're going to drop one, it'll probably be here, and with about 5 minutes remaining, we are trailing by 4. We should be able to score a touchdown, but I wasn't expecting our defense to give up this many points to the Ducks. With a minute remaining, they have the ball, and they just took the drag, which our linebacker could not keep up with, but I am still confident in this defense's ability to clutch up. Come on, somebody make a tackle. What are you all doing? Now it's getting to the point where I'm starting to think they could score a touchdown. I don't think our corner is going to be able to get back to that, and I should have known that Oregon was going to give us issues. They are at home. We have a lot of time in the pocket here, though. The offensive line is fantastic. That's going to be a big completion, and I can't believe our freshman wide receiver just held onto that ball, but I'm going to throw an interception to Williams, and the Ducks are our kryptonite. It's only going to drop us to number 7, though, so it's not the end of the world, and the smart move is probably to go ahead and advance to this Penn State game on the road. I am confident in our abilities to get back into the playoffs, but I'm surprised that we blew out USC by this much. Here in week 8, it is number 4 versus number 1, and it might be the Penn State whiteout game, but I'm not worried because I know how talented everybody on this team really is. Terrell Washington is starting at halfback for us this year, and he's going to take this one in, but approaching halftime, we're trailing by 11, so we have to get in here, and Ernest Payne holds on. It's also probably best just to get the 2-point conversion out of the way, and Marco Lanes actually has some speed. I won't lie, I am a bit nervous for this team because my expectations were very high, and I don't want to not meet them. What is he doing? All our tight end had to do was find the open space there, but instead he ran back to the football and went went backwards. I get that he probably has some nerves, but we cannot be in this type of position. We're going for it on 4th down. This is a play call that could make or break our playoff chances. I am going to throw the wheel route and we catch it. Those risky types of things are what is going to win us this football game. And yes, I'm going for another 2-point conversion. I want to go up by 2 possessions. We aren't going to get in here. I'm going to lateral it, and that was at least worth the shot. Nothing would be bigger than taking down the #1 team in the country. Here on 3rd and 20, there's a minute and a half left and there's nothing open. And with 3 timeouts left, Penn State had no choice but to punt us the ball back, and that was a terrible decision because we're going to be in field goal range. I mean, if their punter was any bit decent, it would have made sense, but we're going to do a little side juke, and that's a 1st down. I am so glad that we have rebounded back from that Oregon game, and since every team in the country has now lost, we are up to the #1 spot. We also have 2 of our offensive players in the Heisman race, which is insane, and with FCS school Northern Iowa on our schedule next, I just feel very bad for them. They got paid to come play us, but they also got thrashed in the process, and you might not have thought it was possible, but I have fixed the Iowa offense. By the time we got to the Wisconsin game, they went from being ranked 4th to being 5-4, and they're coming off 3 straight losses, so I'm not too worried about simulating this because we're going to go out and beat them by 21. Like always, our last game of the regular season was against Nebraska, but because we don't have the tiebreaker over Oregon, we're not going to make the Big Ten championship. That's disappointing, especially because we're down to the #2 spot, and neither of these guys are probably going to win the Heisman now, but if we took care of business when we should have, this wouldn't have been the case. All I can hope now is at least one of our players won a defensive award, but ever since I started using that challenge in the videos, I have yet to see it happen. Unfortunately, our 5th goal is going to remain incomplete, but because Ohio State lost the Big Ten championship, we're back to #1, and of course we might be facing Oregon in the quarterfinals. I need Louisville to clutch up here, and as a Kentucky fan, I can promise you this is the only time I'm rooting for the Cardinals. They couldn't get it done though because Oregon ran out like the last 4 minutes, and our entire side of the bracket only has Big Ten teams left. I'm just glad we're averaging almost 500 yards a game, because if we hadn't, we wouldn't have dominated our conference, and I wish I could say we're starting off well, but we're going down 14. Keep in mind, I have simmed the first 2 possessions, and Marco Lane's already has 2 picks. I'm going to take a sack here, and you know what? I am so desperate, I'm going to throw in Joe Ward. This is not a switch you'd expect to see. He is wearing gloves as our quarterback, but he is going to throw it up, and our tight end comes down with it. We get the first. So maybe I should have never switched up our starting quarterback. He was the starter for a while, and look at that spin. To be honest, I don't even remember why he got benched in the first place a long time ago. He just scooped it to our wide receiver, and he put 2 guys in a spin cycle. We're going off. This play is literally one of the craziest ones I've ever had in NCAA football, and I know that's saying a lot, but it's a game of inches, and whenever you can do all those little things to pick up extra yards, you should have success. It's a little concerning that we have yet to get a stop on defense, but I'm going to continue to push it down the field, and that ball is completely underthrown. In the first half alone, Oregon's defense has 3 interceptions on us, and the Joe Ward experience is not going as well as it did on that first drive, but he is going to pick up this first for us, and as long as we can end the second quarter getting it back within a possession, we should be okay. My biggest issue with the Ducks is how much time they can take off the clock whenever they run it. Here on 3rd down, I left the running back open. That was my man. I should not have given it up, and they're just going to fight for a lot more. All I want to do is at least hold them to a field goal once, and they're going to try our safety, who is going to intercept it. Thank you, James Clayton. I remember recruiting this cornerback in year 1, and that turnover kind of led to a comeback because we're only down by 3 now, and I'm going to find Jarrett Bowie on the wheel route. Nobody is near him, and the senior is going to take this to the house to give us the lead. With 3 minutes remaining, we are in a position where we just got to hold them on 3rd down. I have everything boxed up, and that is another interception. The Ducks run down so much clock throughout the game, so now I get to do the same thing to them, and we got them to burn through all of their timeouts, but we need at least 1 more first down, and I might be able to get it. Joe Ward made the smart decision not pitching the football there, and now Washington's going to pick it up. So thankfully, we have finally beaten Oregon, and Terrell Washington's a monster. Up to this point, he still doesn't have 1,000 rushing yards, but he does have 14 touchdowns, and that's why he was in the Heisman contention. He has 15 receiving touchdowns. Evidently, Marco Lanes just loves to feed him the football, and even though we got the win with Joe Ward there, I think I'm going to start Marco Lanes in the next game. This might be the wrong decision, but he was able to beat every other team on our schedule, and since we're facing the Nittany Lions, I need that experience. Even when Iowa's offense is finally successful, it's very unorthodox, and on this first drive, we are in a 3rd and 10 already. I'm going to go to Zach Orthworth, and he pulls it in with 1 hand. I had no idea our tight end could make plays like this, but that was incredible, and because of it, we're going to finish our first drive with a touchdown. All we had to do was make sure we played well from the jump, and on 3rd and 5, I'm going to make a big tackle, but he throws us off of him, so they're going to get the first. But I'm telling you, we are going to hold this team. We've already done it once, and on 3rd and 18, I'm sticking with this guy. This should be an interception. You've got to be kidding. Like you'd expect, they'd go on to end that drive by scoring 7, but on this halfback screen with 3 minutes left in the second half, we're going to get a big gain from Moulton. And it stinks that he's in because Terrell Washington has turf toe, but I'm not going to let us have an excuse if we don't win this game. I'm going to give it to Orthworth again, and there's no way he was able to make that aggressive catch there. He's playing some of the best football I've ever seen him play, and to end the half, we might be able to go up 28-7. We're getting close. So Penn State is in a lot of trouble right now. On this halfback toss, though, we are not going to be able to get to the outside. And this level of aggressiveness is very stupid, but I am going to risk it, and that did not pay off. We could have been up by 3 possessions, but now it's just 1. And the worst part was Marco Lanes got hurt on the final play of the second half, so Joe Ward is now in the game. He landed wrong and he tore his shoulder, which means he's done for the playoffs. And maybe that's just NCAA football telling me that he deserved to be the starter. We have maintained our lead going into the 4th, but I'd love to hold on to it. And here on 3rd and 8, Moulton's going to take it, and he's going to get the first down plus a lot more. The one benefit of Joe Ward being in is we can run the read option a lot more successfully, as he has a ton of speed. And can he break free to the house here? Not completely, but he did put us in this position, and that drive's finished. We have a 14-point lead, but that's about to change. And what's concerning about that is Penn State has all 3 of their timeouts. It is not over yet. They took a long time to score, but Cutler will help us recover. And all our backup quarterback and halfback have to do is pick up one more first down. Ward is going to juke that guy out of his socks or his shoes, whatever the saying is. We're going to get the win, and I want to celebrate like KJ Jefferson would. If you know, you know, and that's all I'm going to say. It feels good to get Iowa to the national championship, and it's time to see who our opponent's going to be. Texas Tech might have been the higher seed, but they sure did not play like it today, and Kenny Minchie got his team the win, which means Notre Dame stands between us and a national title. I've come way too far with Iowa to lose now, and since we're the 1 seed, we are favorites, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy to get a win. I don't know why this field is so dark, and I'm not sure why it's so discolored. I guess it is turf since we're here in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What's important is James Clayton's going to get the interception, and going into the second quarter, nobody's been able to score yet, but we're on pace to. The only problem is it's 4th and inches, and thankfully they were not prepared for the read option. I'm not sure how. That's all we run. And if every player commits to Joe Ward here, I'm just going to pitch it, but that did not work out. We are very lucky to still have the ball. That should have been a turnover. I'm looking around the field and I don't see a read, so you know what? I'll just scramble in. Our kicker missed the extra point, so we're only up 6-0, but they are pressing our best 2 receivers, and on 4th and inches, we shouldn't have done that. I've made a lot of mistakes playing very aggressively in this dynasty, and midway in the 3rd quarter, we fell behind by 4, so I'm going to be aggressive on 4th down by going with the fake punt. Again, it's just a stupid decision, and one that now puts us behind 20-9, but I'm trying to keep it very realistic, and come on. This is what Iowa's offense was like before I arrived here. We can't be doing this now. And thankfully, to end the 3rd quarter, we got another interception, but we have only scored 6 points in this game off of that 1 touchdown early on, and now you can probably see why I was hesitant on putting Joe Ward in the first place. He was a backup for a reason, and on 3rd and 5, we're going to blow up the wide receiver screen, so we have the ball back and an opportunity where I'm going to run what I know will work. The option is killing them, and they were able to stop it for a while after we scored our first touchdown, but now it's working again, and my plan is to make this the final drive of the game if possible. If it doesn't end up happening that way, we can still take the field goal, and now that I've run a bunch, I'm sure they're not expecting the pass here, so I'm going to laser it up the middle to Ortworth, our tight end. I just noticed Larry Higgins was in the game though, and that means Joe Ward is out for the game with a strained pectoral, so I'm going to go ahead and sub in Anthony Brown because I trust him more. During this playoff run, we're going to have technically played 4 different quarterbacks, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but it shows how dominant every other part of the team's been. This is a massive 3rd and 4 because if we don't pick it up, we're going to have to take our field goal, but that's not happening, and with 15 seconds left, I'm going with the quarterback draw. Come on, fight your way in. We cannot go to overtime with our 4th string quarterback, and on the halfback toss, Moulton is going to take it around, so Kamari Moulton ends up winning it for Iowa, at least assuming that we don't give up a Hail Mary on the final play. The defense gets it done, and it comes full circle as that has been our best unit throughout this rebuild. James Clayton won player of the game with 3 interceptions. He was incredible for us, and there is the national championship trophy. It was a crazy final 2 years, but once we figured out the offense, we started dominating. And Iowa fans, if it gives you any hope, this is something that could actually be done in 5 years if you all figure out your offense. And this is one of the shortest rebuilds I've ever done, but it was only possible because we ended up having so much NFL talent on this team. Anyways, let me know in the comments who you want me to rebuild next, and make sure to check out all of my other ones if you haven't seen them already.